Hey, friendo, Steve here.
Larson.
And welcome back to Going In Raw, the only pro wrestling podcast you'll be listening to right here at youtube.com/Steven Larson. Available wherever podcasts can be found. And of course, taped live at Twitch, twitch.tv/Steven Larson. This is one of our retro reviews, Survivor Series 2002. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that we are in honor of the doo-doo brown and blue.
Oh, wrong way.
There you go. Tights of the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, in his second match back after having retired back in 1998. This is our surroundings. We got it really honestly does look like crap, these little bars on the side here.
They do. Yeah.
But I figured, when in Rome,
got the brown bars. Yeah. Perhaps one of the most famous aspects of the show, as you mentioned, is Shawn Michaels' doo-doo brown pants with blue trim. We'll get into a lot of that down the line a little bit. Of course, just not watching the show, listening to the Something to Wrestle With episode. Right before we started, I found this really interesting kind of oral history of the first chamber match on ESPN. We'll get into all of that. First, I guess we just talk general thoughts, feelings. It's the first chamber match, first elimination chamber match ever here at Survivor Series 2002. Notable for that. And, you listen to people's accounts of the genesis of the Elimination Chamber. And everybody says that first chamber, pretty much dangerous as fuck.
It sort of epitomized our phrase here on the show. That looks like it sucked. That entire thing looks like it was constructed exclusively to suck.
To hurt people. That's what it seemed like. But here's like listening to Pritchard talk about it. So he says, it was conceived at a meeting, I believe, in Nashville. By his account, the same meeting where they thought up the Katie Vick storyline, which was, much before this. And the ESPN kind of oral history, Triple H kind of takes credit for it, but like in the Pritchard thing, he mentions that Triple H would pitch war games all the time, and Vince would always shoot it down.
That was an interesting revelation that Vince hated the idea of war games. He didn't like the two cages next to each other
because it took seats out of the arena to sell tickets.
Well, ringside seats. It took the most expensive
ones
out of the arena. So it's kind of interesting. Maybe it lends credence to the idea that NXT 1.0 was on its own island because that became a thing for them was war games, and I doubt we're going to see that again.
No, I don't think we are. And also, NXT was exactly pro wrestling how Triple H saw it. Anyways, getting back to Elimination Chamber. So, as Pritchard told it, they conceived the idea of Elimination Chamber and then sent it off to a company to make the structure. That company did lighting too, so it was a whole deal with the lights and the under lighting and the cage and all that. And then they built it and they put it in the venue, and everybody's like, "Wow, this looks exceedingly dangerous because it's all made of steel." The one thing that boggled my mind was two things. One, in the design process, did anybody ever give this company any sort of direction as far as how to make this thing safe?
No,
first and foremost.
Seemingly not. It's funny because Triple H in this oral history claims that he came up with the idea on a napkin and then he submitted it to the suggestion box or something. And Pritchard talks about how, and I think the two ideas can coexist. Pritchard said they were looking for something kind of like along the same lines as Hell in a Cell, like a new type of, extreme gimmick match that, will be extra brutal. But like usually in pro wrestling, you sort of want to fake how brutal it is. Like Hell in a Cell, honestly, it's just chain link mesh. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
so long as no one gets chucked off the cage or goes through it unplanned.
Right.
There's usually, safety measures in place to increase the odds that no one is going to get hurt.
Yeah, it's just mesh. It just bends a little bit. It bounces. Yeah. This didn't.
This didn't bend. I mean, like the chain was stiff. Yeah. It was just like grated steel for the floor outside the ring. And so, when they built it and everybody looks at it and everybody realized this is going to suck, the two things I thought was, why didn't anybody in WWE give this company who made it any directives about how to make it safer? And two, once they saw how awful it was going to be, like, did they consider, okay, last minute, let's put mats on the outside or something?
Yeah.
Was there any measures put in place to protect the wrestlers?
No, it seems like they put measures in place specifically to like make it worse.
No.
It's kind of funny because right before the match, Bischoff comes out and starts cutting a promo in the chamber on the chamber, and he's got a wrench with him, and he starts clanging on everything. It's like, oh wow, that is real.
It's real metal.
I'm like, there's only one thing that actually makes that sound, and that's actual.
That's metal sound.
Yeah, it's metal.
It's metal sound. So I listened to the podcast before watching the main event, and I knew going into it. What the heck is this?
Uh-oh.
That's something on my shirt. Sorry. Going into it, that it was a crap situation for the wrestlers because it was all metal. And it sucked. That first kind of became obviously clear is when Rob Van Dam did like a senton off the top rope with a Triple H on the outside, and he lands kind of on his hamstring tailbone area.
Yeah.
And he just instantly grimaces and holds his leg.
And
this isn't selling.
It's like on his hip. And
I know.
like, he grabs his hip. He's like, ah. Yeah. That look, you could tell that when these dudes were taking bumps, because like one of the first things that happens is Triple H takes like a back body drop onto the actual grating, and you could just tell there's no give whatsoever.
I did notice when they were taking backdrops and stuff on it that they would try their best when they land, hit feet first.
Yeah, that's all you
try
could do.
to minimize the impact on their body as best they could, but they can only do so much.
Yeah, you can only do so much of that. It was absolutely horrific. And I don't know. I mean, like over the years, I'm assuming they've sort of softened this thing up a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
So now the ringside area isn't that steel. It just looks like, if memory serves, it's kind of like gray masses. They have like an area of stuff. So I don't know if it's some sort of wood construct with a little bit of padding similar to what is in the ring.
Yeah.
I don't know, but in recent years, it's definitely not just the steel.
Yeah. That was pretty nuts. It's funny too because this was November of 2002. In 2005, probably I think probably 2005's WrestleMania was with the first Money in the Bank, if I'm not mistaken. And that's the one that Booker T, I think, specifically said that seems too dangerous. And it makes me think, if you're thinking back to this Elimination Chamber, he's like, I'm done with these gimmick matches. Y'all can go away with those because I don't care. I'm a five-time. I don't need that bullshit in my life. So he sat that Money in the Bank out. But yeah, so it's pretty terrifying to actually watch this. That being said, I mean, these dudes are all really tough, and this was a hell of a match. Like the actual chamber match was great.
And it's all the more impressive considering it was fraught with mishaps. So early on, RVD does a frog splash off the top of one of the pods, but there's not enough clearance for him to actually stand up and do the move. So he kind of has to like fling his body off and try to hit it. In the process, either his knee or his shin lands across Triple H's throat. So Triple H is legit hurt. You see Earl throw up the X.
Yeah.
Like he's having trouble breathing and talking.
Yeah.
So he spends a lot of time just like staying out of the match.
Yeah.
In this oral history here on ESPN, they say that they got the order of entrance mixed up, where Michaels was supposed to be second to last, not Kane. However, Kane came out first, and so everything they had plotted out to do for that last stretch of the match, they couldn't do. So they had to call it all on the fly.
Yeah. Yeesh. Triple H, according to Dave Meltzer, I read the Wrestling Observer newsletter leading up to this. Triple H lasted, I believe, 27 minutes with his throat busted up like that, and Bruce Pritchard had noted, he was like, we had considered, we were seeing how it was going, and we were considering pulling Triple H from the match, which again would have completely cocked up the finish, which was really terrific. I mean, Triple H and Shawn Michaels inside the ring, outside the ring, in real life, in kayfabe, just amazing chemistry. Their chemistry was off the charts. Good.
I know, and
but
apparently
they had considered pulling him, and he said no.
Yeah, well, according to this ESPN thing, they didn't plot out the finish. They were just going to call it in the ring once it was down to the last two of them.
That's kind of not surprising given how those guys are. Like, I get the feeling that a lot of, because it's actually a fairly simple, finish. But it's so good. Speaking of Triple H, one thing that became pretty obvious, if you listen to Bruce Pritchard or if you read Dave Meltzer, Triple H had a lot of power in 2002.
Yes, he
like
did.
There was, I think, a report that Conrad noted from the Torch newsletter that some people had said that backstage Triple H had the kind of power where even a glance, even a look, if an idea is brought up in the writer's room and they look at Triple H and he goes, then it's done.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to advance. And so it's interesting. Of course, according to Bruce Pritchard, Triple H was originally slated to win the Elimination Chamber, which isn't surprising at all. And of course, the guy who actually won it, his best friend, who apparently the match that HBK did before this was his SummerSlam return. And I think it was a street fight with him and Triple H. This, he came back. Now, they didn't really in the podcast get into what led to HBK sticking around. Do you have some of that info?
Yeah, the ESPN thing does. So as Shawn Michaels puts it, he says the SummerSlam match went well. He said he felt good. He said even before I can make any sort of decision, I got a call from Vince asking how I felt. And of course, he said, I've got an idea, which probably just led to the Chamber match. But the Pritchard podcast didn't really go through the process of when the decision was made. Well, seemingly the decision was made to have Shawn win last minute because Vince, according to Pritchard, Vince didn't want a predictable finish. And so they had the feel-good moment with Shawn coming back, win the title. But he didn't get into. So that decision was made. Obviously, if he's winning the title, he's not going to just not show up.
Yeah, right.
He has to be around. So then, okay, this run, how long is it going to last? And if it was always kind of a, hey, we'll go this far, see how things go, essentially.
Yeah, right.
Like he wins the title. Hey, I'll stick around till Mania. We'll see how things go from there,
Yeah.
Or what exactly decision-making process was like between WWE and Shawn Michaels as far as extending his run, which ended up lasting another, 4 years after this?
Yeah.
4 or 5 years. It's and I'm sure if I'm guessing that Bruce and Conrad have an episode about Shawn Michaels' second run in WWE. I wouldn't be surprised, and they probably answer those questions here. They don't really get into it this episode. Before we get to the breakdown of the show, there's another thing I found quite interesting about this time frame and how it relates to today, and that's the part in Something to Wrestle With about Shane McMahon's role in the company in 2002. Where he was kind of on the outs. He'd show up, I think, 2 days a month, helping out over pay-per-view weekends. That was pretty much his role in the company. He wasn't wrestling. He was just kind of showing up. There was reports, I think, from Keller as well that he and Triple H weren't getting along.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons he was kind of on the outs. Here we go. Fast forward almost 20 years. It's interesting to see that Shane's kind of in the same situation.
It's still a Succession type situation, man.
It really is.
It was back then. It is now. So Shawn Michaels actually only have after this. He only had the title for actually less than a month by a couple of days at the next pay-per-view Armageddon. Triple H won it back in a 3 Stages of Hell match.
Oh wow!
He got it back so that he could drop it to Goldberg a little less than about 9 months after that. So Triple H's reign of terror was really something else. At that point, he was kind of only dropping it to guys that he really liked. I mean, he did drop it to Benoit after that, of course, at Mania. Randy Orton at SummerSlam got it from Benoit. And then it was back on Triple H. And then it was vacated. And then guess what? It was back on Triple H.
Back on Triple H, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, one more thing before we get to the breakdown of the show. This, I had forgotten, this was the debut of Scott Steiner in WWE.
It was, yeah. Yeah,
man, that was a massive pop he got.
It was
massive.
A huge pop. He was one of the guys, according to Pritchard, that he just let his WCW contract run out, and when it ran out, they just they signed him, and that was it. So yeah, huge pop for the big bad booty daddy. Of course, he was battling a decent number of injuries already coming into the company, including drop foot. And so that probably limited his time. He didn't have the most stellar run there in WCW. Again, I'm sure they probably did an episode on that because there seemed to be some lingering threads there when Conrad was asking one of their mailbag questions. said something like, was it always the plan for Triple H to end up crushing Scott Steiner? Because they had a program. They did like an arm wrestling contest and like a bodybuilding pose off. And then of course a match or two. And he said, no, that wasn't always the plan. I would imagine maybe a little bit of the crowd response and maybe a little bit of Triple H just sort of deciding, yeah, no, I don't like this.
Could be. I mean, because they had their match at the Rumble the following year in 2003, just a couple months later.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, just as far as an introduction to the WWE, you know, as the big bad booty daddy, this was a pretty successful one. That crowd was absolutely into Scott Steiner. Quick question for you. Where were you in 2002, November of 2002? Did you watch this when it originally aired? I don't remember if I did. When I was living, so I was, by November, I think I was already in Palmdale, California. I was living there.
I was still living at the house. I was still living at the house.
When I was living in Hollywood, like a couple blocks away from Hollywood and Highland, that's when I used to go to Santa Monica. The Hooters there had WWE pay-per-views. And one of those pay-per-views, I was sitting, it was literally just me at the bar they had, and like three empty seats down was The Miz watching as well. And we're the only two people sitting there watching WWE pay-per-views. And I kind of knew who he was from the MTV stuff, but like not really. And then a couple of years later, he ended up being a major player in the WWE.
Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy.
But I don't remember. I know I saw this ages ago as well, but I don't remember if I saw it live or not. It was kind of interesting also, Meltzer, talking about Shawn Michaels and, you know, his impact on the company. It's an interesting time for the company because there's no Rock, no Austin, even though they would both be back after a little while. You know, Austin at this point might have still just been gone because he wanted to be gone from the burnout stuff, and Rock was probably doing a little bit of Hollywood stuff at this point.
Yeah, I would think so.
Because he came back a little bit later on and did some stuff with Lesnar, I think, in 2003. Yeah, let's go ahead and dive into it.
Sure.
One thing about this show is that there was a lot of the Saliva song Always. That song was always on during this pay-per-view because in every single video package for the Chamber, there was literally a full beginning to end song performance live from WWE The World.
Yes.
The dumpster fire that was The World.
Yeah.
The money laundering scheme that was The World, or embezzlement.
And then also they did a live performance from The World of Chris Jericho's theme song, at least at the time, King of the World.
Yeah. Which I don't remember a lick of.
I don't remember that at all. I don't remember that at all.
I was like, did Saliva create their own interpretation of Break the Walls Down? Because like Break the Walls, I think, is still a part of the lyric scheme in there or something. I thought I remember hearing something like that.
Well, according to Pritchard, it's like they had they were doing, so like the way it was a little unclear the exact nature of the relationship based on what Pritchard said, but WWE had some sort of music arm of the company. Yeah. And Saliva was one of their artists. At least that's how I took it. Yeah. And so they were using Saliva on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, I mean, they do have the song Click, Click, Boom. Is that the song?
Is that them? I don't think
that's them. That's Saliva.
Really?
Yeah. If you look at, because Conrad also was Josh and Bruce about that. Yeah. Click, Click, Boom is them. Yeah. From their album Every 6 Seconds in 2001.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but no, this was a very WWE song. I tell you, nu metal really only works in the context of the WWE.
Yeah. So this shows at Madison Square Garden. Of course, when shows are at the Garden, they have that little entryway thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That faces directly toward Hardcam.
People are always walking.
I know Pritchard hates it for that reason. Never really bothers me. I love the LED doors. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, those are neat.
I thought that was great.
I thought, those were pretty cool. I like those too. It kicked off. I thought it actually kicked off with a hella good match.
This was a really good match.
This match was great. So it was So this was post draft, and they did that asinine thing where they broke up the Dudley Boys, and they made Devon his own. He was like I think he was the religious Devon, wasn't he? The Reverend Devon or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meanwhile, I guess Bubba Ray and Spike were doing some sort of Dudley type thing. They brought Jeff Hardy on with them in a 6-man elimination table match against 3-minute warning. And, of course, they had their manager, Rico, which, according to Pritchard, was a pretty good worker, but Vince thought he was too old. If I were to look up his age, I would imagine he was probably mid-30s at this point, to be honest with you.
Probably. He probably was. I'll check on that.
Yeah.
Continue.
But no, this match was wildly fun. And it ended with like a massive pop for the crowd because the Dudley Boys got to reunite. And it just sort of showed that was a bad idea, putting them apart in the first place.
I know. He was 40. He was 40.
Oh, he was 40 at the time? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's fair. Like in 96.
Sorry, no, 41. He was 41. Sorry.
Okay. In 96, Jake the Snake was 41. And they made a big deal, and that King of the Ring that Austin had his thing, and they made such a big deal. Oh, he's over the hill. Can the old timer, reclaim his former glory? And of course he didn't. So anyways, it's funny because Pritchard noted this, and I noted it as well. As soon as I saw Rosie,
oh yeah,
dead ringer for his brother Roman Reigns, dead ringer in the face. Obviously, he's a heftier guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a dead ringer.
Yeah. One of the first things I noticed as well was Jeff Hardy's awesome lime green pants.
Yeah.
That matched kind of the general color palette used at Survivor Series 2002.
Yeah.
I thought those were great pants.
You know what's funny about it's funny because they sort of mention they talk a little bit about Jeff Hardy and the problems with working it with him when the dude really just sort of wanted to do his own thing. Mm-hmm. And Conrad correctly mentions that was kind of his appeal because that was his vibe. And people loved that about him. And it was interesting because later on, we're going to talk about Billy Kidman. And almost immediately after he got to WWE, they not rebranded it, but they gave him sort of wrestler trunks as opposed to the tank top and jorts thing.
Yeah, the jean shorts, yeah.
But I remember that was one of the appeals of Kidman was he always did come off like just a guy from the crowd, which Bruce didn't like. But I'm like, no, that's why people liked him, because it was like the Gen X thing, like a guy who doesn't give a shit, but then he goes and does crazy shit. And that was Jeff Hardy too. It's just he had much more of like a sort of a punk glam aesthetic, his own type of very unique artistic type of
as opposed to a guy who jumped over the guardrail and got in the ring. Yeah.
As opposed to a guy who's couch surfing. Yeah.
Yeah. Because Jeff Hardy, he at various phases in his career had the face paint. It was he still there was still even though he looked like just a guy who walked in, there was still a bit of spectacle about his presentation.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And how he carried himself.
Yeah, he wasn't just wearing like jorts and a tank top.
No.
I mean, he was actually wearing a tank top in this, but it's all leaking. His paint's all leaking on it. He looks really cool. He looks like
he does look cool.
Jackson Pollock painting. He looks great.
Yeah. This match was tons of fun. Of course, you got Jeff Hardy doing all sorts of crazy shit, jumping off the vomitorium.
That's what he called it. Yeah. It was just
looking for
the
proper nomenclature of the entranceway into the arena from the concourse. Does a swanton off that, puts Jamal through a table.
So Spike gets eliminated first, and then Hardy hits that swanton. That did look like it sucked.
It was like a reverse spine buster or something. Went face first into the table.
Yeah, that looked gnarly. And then Hardy, I believe, swantons Rosie through the table, and so Rosie gets eliminated. And then Jeff Hardy gets eliminated, by Jamal. He hits a splash off the top rope onto the floor where there's a table. So Jeff is eliminated. And then Jamal gets eliminated by Bubba Ray, who reverses a Hurricane Rana attempt into a powerbomb through the table, which leaves only Bubba and Rico. But Rosie and Jamal don't care about that. They come back so that their team can win. But Devon comes out in full Dudley Boy gear and makes the save. And, of course, it allows him and Bubba to hit a 3D on Rico, the last man to be eliminated. Meltzer gave this all of 3 stars. I noticed this. I feel like this entire pay-per-view probably was like each match was 1 star less than it probably should have been.
Yeah, no, because even like some matches I thought were pretty solid. Like either Keller, Pritchard, or both were like, no, this was trash. Like the women's hardcore match. I thought that was pretty solid, except the end. They had to redo the end of the match. You could obviously tell that. But before that, I'm like, wow. This is pretty good. This is actually really good.
I didn't think it was. I thought it was. I was like, oh, he gave this a star and a quarter. I wonder if this is going to be like a botch fest. No, it was physical. It was brutal. And there really wasn't all that, like, there wasn't that much like unintentional sloppiness. You know, it was an intentionally sloppy, physical, no DQ weapons match. Yeah, I know. I would have given this, like, these days he throws 4 stars at whatever. I mean, for back then, how did this not get? Or maybe that's because it's like it's back then and the scale was
I don't know,
notched down. I mean, again, it's a star ratings. Who gives a shit? But it's fun to talk about.
It's one man's opinion. Yeah, exactly. After that, we have Stacy Keibler. She's at The World in Times Square, WWE's restaurant. She introduces Saliva. She says, you know, I'm sorry that Test couldn't be here.
Right.
And so Saliva performs. What's the Survivor Series theme called? Always.
Yeah.
Always playing.
Always playing.
Always playing.
Dude, from beginning to end, the entire song, and they show like random ass clips of matches that are going to be coming up.
Going. I know.
The worst fashion convention of new metal was the super baggy pants.
I know.
I couldn't stand the super baggy pants. I mean, that was in hip hop culture at the time as well.
That was fashion at the time. Were the baggy pants?
So gnarly. So
after that, we had Jamie Noble, the Cruiserweight champ, taking on Billy Kidman. Another fun match.
Yeah. No, this was really, really good. Jamie Noble, he was always really, really good. That's why he's still and has been for like probably a decade now a producer with WWE.
Yeah. I mean, he's a former Ring of Honor champion, too. After this, he went into Ring of Honor, won the championship at least once there.
Nydia. Yeah, I always really liked Jamie Noble and Nydia. It was shortly after this probably that there was that one promo where Scott Steiner and Jamie Noble were in a feud, and Scott Steiner slaps Nydia on her butt, and I swear to God, you look at his fingers, you're like, dude, why are you digging so deep? It's not good. I mean, this isn't WCW anymore, man. You can't just get away with anything.
Did you know that's what, you know, we'll cover it more when we get to his promo, but during the Pritchard show, they made a point of saying that when after Scott beat up Matt Hardy and Chris Nowitzki, he says, give me a fucking mic.
Yeah.
And they cut it out of the version
on Peacock. It's a really awkward cut.
Yeah.
Give me a fucking mic. Then apparently goes backstage and Vince says, can't do that here.
Ow.
But no, this was a lot of fun. Lots of false finishes, some cool Tiger drivers. But in the end, Kidman gets his shooting star press off for the win. I don't know. Last time we were talking about Kidman, we saw like a compilation of him not really executing the shooting star press to perfection and knocking some people out. But this time he didn't do that. He hit it pretty well. I was always a huge fan of Kidman. Back to when he was with Raven's Flock and he was literally like, you know, squatter. And he was always like scratching his face and he always looked dirty, but then he'd do crazy shit.
I know.
That was my fate. I loved that. And when he came over, I really honestly think that there were 2 guys that came over during the invasion. It was RVD and him. And the crowd sort of already was stirring about these 2 guys. They're like, oh, they do really cool shit. And they're kind of on the down low. And I feel like they really ran with RVD, although a little bit late. And with Kidman, I feel like taking him out of the tank top and having him be more like wrestler guy really killed it. I think it really killed it. Yeah. And he started beefing up too.
He did look bulkier here.
It looked so cooler when he was just sort of a skinny kid who would do really cool stuff. But everybody when they got to WWE back then would bulk up, like Eddie, you know?
Yeah. So like Noble, I think they said was 5'7". I think they mentioned during this match his height and weight. And Kidman has at least a good 3-4 inches on him and looked like 30 pounds. And Noble is pretty buff. He's in shape. And Kidman was so thick through the upper body, his shoulders and chest. It looked like he put 15 pounds on since his WCW days. That's like the first thing I noticed.
And this is not like, I'm not like body shaming. I'm the last person to do that. But like when he put on that weight, like it made his midsection look sort of like bulkier. And it was like, oh, it's not the Kidman of old. He just looked less mobile, you know? But still, I mean, this is a terrific, he was still an amazing worker, just a real, and I know he was a producer for a long time for WWE.
Yeah, he was. Nydia got involved quite a bit in this match, but in the end, Kidman, who had already got 2 pins on Jamie Noble leading into this match, got a third, won that Cruiserweight title.
Yeah, I think like every title got changed hands here.
Yeah, during the show, yeah.
Because even the tag titles too, yeah.
After that, we got Kurt Angle backstage with his tag team partner, Chris Benoit. It's a can they coexist storyline.
Yeah, even back then, or was it can they coexist?
Yep. So Angle's watching Kidman win on TV. He's like, hey, there's no doubt we can win back our tag titles so long as you stay out of my way, the team captain's way. And Benoit's like, what did you say? Say it again. And Angle's like, hey, I'm not falling for this. We're partners. We're friends till the end. When we're together, there's no one who can beat us. So what do you say? And then Benoit takes a moment, offers his hand, and Angle goes, no. Tag partners don't shake hands. We got a hug.
Vince loves the hugging gimmick. Hugging for the sake of comedy is like one of Vince's sort of more underrated creative ideas. Yeah, it's funny to watch like Benoit try to do kind of comedy stuff because it's number one, it's plainly weird because of what happened with Benoit. Now when you see him, that's all you think about. But also even back then, it's like this guy looks like he doesn't really know what it is to smile. He doesn't understand like that, you know, element of expression. But Kurt Angle's so damn good. He's absolutely stellar with everything. After that, we had something called F-View, which apparently even Bruce Pritchard didn't know what that was. I took a brief look on the internet to see what F-View was, and somebody on Reddit on like Squared Circle or something thought that it was like a Bischoff thing. So maybe when Bischoff came to the show, he maybe there was one segment or one backstage promo where he initiated F-View. I dig it as a convention because it's it's a motivated camera.
Yeah, I mean, it in some ways it's reminiscent of GTV, the hidden camera thing.
Totally, yeah.
You know, and this one is Victoria. She's talking to a mirror. It's her magic mirror, and she's asking the mirror, who's the prettiest of them all. The mirror says, of course, we can't hear the mirror talking. Says, it's Trish. This angers Victoria. She breaks it, and there's a cardboard standout of Trish in the same room. She starts tearing into that, too. Victoria was great.
She was really good. She was really, really good. Yeah, I agree. She was awesome. She was really awesome. And I liked the little motivation video package they did for this. Like, you know, it wasn't the same direction that WWE would take in a lot of other stuff when you have just two women in a feud. So after that, we did have that match, Victoria versus Trish Stratus. Again, we had kendo sticks here. We had we had that mirror. We had a fire extinguisher spot. We had, and honestly, you could probably mute the commentary because Lawler is as awful. He was back then.
Awful.
Pretty damn bad. He was pretty terrible.
He was so bad. It seemed pretty obvious that the mirror was supposed to play into the finish of the match. However, at one point, I think it was Trish inadvertently steps on it. And breaks it.
Yeah.
And so it seems like they had to come up with a new finish for the match. And that's like, if that was like my lone criticism of this was the finish kind of comes out of nowhere, but understanding that they had to come up with a new finish out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm not going to hold it against it. Yeah. I thought the performances from both Victoria and Trish were awesome. Trish was bumping all over the place.
She was, yeah.
She was bumping all over the place, getting thrown to garbage cans and flying around.
Yeah, she was working her ass off. She was working her ass off. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, she gets out a fire extinguisher towards the finish here. Trish tries to grab her, put her in the ring, and instead she eats just a whole face of fire extinguisher, and then Victoria follows up with like a suplex to get the win here.
Yeah, it's like a standard snap suplex, and when she wins that way, it's like, oh, okay. Well, they must have to, come up with a new finish. So
I mean, you got to figure a fire extinguisher to the face followed by a roll up would be a typical finish. It's like you're still reeling from fire extinguisher to face.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. After that, we had an Eric Bischoff interview. He's very happy with himself over having created the Elimination Chamber. He says, you can see history and the future all in one night. According to Eric Bischoff, time is a flat circle. And he says, when we debut the Elimination Chamber, you'll see history in the making, but also showing the future of this industry. And then, well, Big Show walks up behind him, says, you made a pretty big mistake trading me away from Raw. And if you don't think so, watch me. I'm going to walk out the new WWE champion.
Well, so we cut to Brock Lesnar warming up backstage. Paul Heyman walks up to him, and Lesnar's like, hey, are you nervous? And Paul says, yeah. Ever since Big Show showed up on SmackDown, I've been a nervous wreck. I begged you, Brock, not to pick a fight with him. And to be honest, nothing has been the same since Hell in the Cell. Brock has some rib tape on because apparently he actually did break a rib.
Apparently, like clean. Like there was apparently at one house show, I think, or in the previous pay-per-view, he like cracked it, and then he kept on wrestling after that. And at a house show more recent, like right before this, it completely broke, and which
means it could have punctured his lung.
Yeah,
in theory.
Yeah, and he decided to keep on wrestling. Which crazy. Is nuts. And even Conrad is like, Bruce. He's like, Bruce, why did you guys let him do that? Different time.
Well, he said Brock wanted to do it.
And he wanted to do it. Yeah. I just wonder if a wrestler wanted to do that today, they'd be like, no, you're not going to do that. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sure. So Heyman says nothing's been the same since Hell in the Cell. So at Hell in the Cell prior to this, it was Brock and The Undertaker. So Paul says, I am nervous, but now is the time to put that all behind us. We're in Madison Square Garden in my hometown of New York City. And I promise I'll do everything in my power to make sure that my client leaves WWE champion.
But we're all sitting here thinking it's the Big Show. Well, that ain't going to happen. So like the foreshadowing of my client, not saying Brock Lesnar, sort of falls on deaf ears. It's also interesting around this time how many people seem to not like the Big Show. Like in reality, Big Show has had one of the most up and down careers of anybody.
Oh, yeah.
In modern day pro wrestling, because there are times when he seems incredibly motivated, svelte, athletic, and then there's times like November 2002 when everybody sort of considers him the laziest slob on the roster with like a bad attitude.
He was sent back to OVW.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Pritchard talks about him for a spell, Big Show, and just says he's like a really sensitive guy.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I don't know how that plays into the up and down nature of his career, but that's just like the one thing he really says about him. He's just like a really sensitive guy. Sorry, go ahead.
I've always felt that Big Show to me is like the Shaq of pro wrestling. I know Shaq has pro wrestled, but the Big Show, in terms of, this is a guy who if he had like sort of a killer instinct, probably could have dominated in like a Bruno type fashion.
Yeah.
Like he had the charisma when he was athletic. He had, like, if you watch him in 95, oh my God, the drop kicks this dude was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But because, you know, mentally, maybe he was just like reliant on his size, it would make him a little bit on the lazy side mentally. And so he didn't really actually, even though he had a stellar career that anybody would love, maybe didn't actually fulfill his fullest potential.
Entirely
Shaq
possible.
is the same most dominant guy in the history of basketball. If he worked on his free throws, jump shots, whatever, maybe he could have won 10 rings. Who knows? You know?
Yeah, it's entirely possible. I will say at this time, I was really enjoying Big Show's gimmick of press slamming people off the stage.
That was great. Yeah.
He just picked people up and just throw them off. That was great.
Yeah,
picks up
awesome.
Brock Lesnar, throws him off the stage. That was pretty great.
Yeah, no, that was awesome.
So that match is next. So Big Show, understandably, is going after Brock's ribs, but Pritchard was saying they were doing everything they could to kind of protect Brock. But if you have a rib injury, like just taking a basic bump, is putting yourself at risk. Anyway, or even lifting someone up, lifting anybody up. You'd be like, this area of your body is used for basically everything.
I know that Brock doesn't run the ropes, but running the ropes, you're bouncing off your ribs.
Yeah, everything.
And on top
every
of that,
bump you take has impact on your ribs.
I've never had a rib injury. You have, though, haven't you?
I've had bruised ribs before, and it sucked.
And that's just bruised. Like that. This is broken. That's nuts. That is absolutely
some of the worst pain I've felt in my life is when I had a bruised rib and sneezed.
Oh,
it's the worst.
Oh,
worst.
No.
And that's just a bruised rib. I can't imagine trying to wrestle through a broken rib. That's insane.
Could you imagine if he sneezed on a broken rib?
Oh.
Base hit right there. Oh, that's so.
Big Show is understandably working over Brock's midsection, his ribs. Eventually, Brock makes a comeback, gets Big Show up for a belly to back, and hits a German suplex. He's looking for an F5, but Big Show knees him in the ribs. Then Brock runs into the ref for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think there was supposed to be a spot there, but I think the timing was a little off. So it looks like he just sprinted right into the ref. So he hits Big Show with a belly to belly. Paul throws a chair in the ring. Brock picks it up. Big Show grabs him for a choke slam. Brock escapes, hits Big Show with the chair, hits with the F5, and the new ref runs down. And he starts counting the pin, and then Heyman, like perfect timing, as the ref's hand is coming down for 2, Heyman pulls him out of the ring.
Yeah.
And Brock just stares at Heyman.
And camera zooms in on Heyman, and it's like, oh.
And so he chases him around the ring, but Heyman runs back into the ring, leading Brock back towards Big Show. Big Show hits Brock with the chair a couple times, choke slams him onto the chair to get the win. This was Brock's first loss in WWE.
Yeah.
His first loss.
Yeah, it was stupid. I didn't like, come on, this is terrible against the Big Show. And the funny thing is, I know they were like telling a story because like the month after this, Lesnar interfered in a match between Angle and the Big Show, allowing Angle to win the WWE Championship. Lesnar goes on to win the Rumble. Yeah. And then faces and wins against Angle at WrestleMania.
I guess the idea is that they wanted Brock to go on a face run.
Yeah.
After being a heel since he'd come in. And I guess they wanted to separate him from Heyman for the face run.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought him losing the title to somebody was necessary to tell that story. And so I guess Big Show was the guy.
It's weird that it was Big Show. Honestly, it should have been Angle from the beginning because Angle, I know they were doing the tag stuff, but Angle ended up being like after Armageddon, like Heyman literally was with Big Show for like a month because after Armageddon, Angle becomes champion and Heyman is his manager. So Heyman's just going, I don't know what talent management contract he has, but they're pretty fluid in terms of like length of time because Angle Heyman decided to just go from person to person at this point.
Yeah. So Big Show wins. Heyman gets in the ring to celebrate with them for a bit. And then they sprint backstage, get into a limo. The limo drives off.
Meltzer gave this one 2 stars.
This was probably the worst match on the card.
This deserved maybe 1.25. This wasn't. I mean, it hurts to watch because I mean it's impressive. Like it's in terms of the sack it takes to have this match for Brock Lesnar, 4 stars.
Mm-hmm.
But like the actual match itself sucks, and it's stupid that he lost to Big Show for his first loss. That was a bad move. Crowd does not give a shit about it either. Crowd's like, I don't think that's good.
Yeah.
After that, we had a tag title triple threat video package once again set to the sounds of Saliva's Always.
Ugh. Too much saliva.
Saliva series.
Too much saliva. What kind of band name is Saliva?
It's a bad name.
Let's name yourself Booger.
Yeah, Phlegm.
Spit.
Yeah,
and
that's actually a good name. That's Spit's a good
it's not
name.
that great. Spit by itself isn't that good.
I guarantee you there is a band named Spit.
Probably.
Spit band. Is there a band called Spit? Spit? No. Okay. There's an album, but seemingly there's no band. Wait, nope. There's a Facebook profile for an Amsterdam band called Spit.
Oh, all right. Anyways, this match was great. Eddie and Chavo against Benoit Angle against Edge and Ray Mysterio. This match was tons of fun. Edge and Ray walk in as your tag champs. They don't leave tag champs, however. The Can They Coexist storyline was playing out with Benoit Angle. And then the one advantage that Eddie and Chavo had is that their family has been a tag team for a long time, and that was the story of this match. They're the most cohesive team.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
and they use that and their penchant for finding the most opportunistic moments to get involved in the match to get the win.
Yeah.
And it was great, like that bid especially, which led to Benoit and Angle getting eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
So match breaks down. Benoit has Angle hits Eddie with an angle slam. It follows with an ankle lock. Benoit puts Edge in a crossface.
Mm-hmm.
And Angle's not the legal man. He's trying, and the rest try to get Angle out. And so while he's doing that, you see Chavo come in and blast Benoit with the tag title.
Mm-hmm.
And so the ref sees Chavo with the tag title, and he throws it to Angle right as Benoit's getting up. So Benoit looks and sees that Angle has the tag title in his hand. He's like, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
Why did you hit me with that?"
Yeah, yeah.
And so they start pushing and shoving each other. And then Ray drop kicks Benoit into Angle. Edge looks for an executioner. Benoit escapes that. Instead, Edge hits a spear on Benoit, gets the pin. So Angle and Benoit are eliminated. So Angle and Benoit take turns arguing with each other and then destroying everybody else in this match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Argue with each other, destroy everybody else in this match. Eventually, Angle hits an angle slam on Edge, and they leave, and they're still arguing.
Yeah.
And so it's down to Eddie and Chavo, Edge and Ray. Eddie and Chavo isolate Edge for a good long while until he hits like a double pancake on them. He tags in Ray. Ray goes in on a run. They hit this. Ray and Edge hits this great assisted run off the top on Eddie. Chavo breaks up that pin. So Ray hits a 619 on Eddie. He's looking for the springboard splash. Instead, Chavo hits Ray with the tag title while the ref is trying to get Edge out of the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie puts this submission hold on Ray, and Ray has to tap out.
Yeah.
Really fun match.
And it's funny because that's essentially also your I mean, that is the SmackDown 6 right there, isn't it? Isn't that the entirety of the SmackDown 6? It's interesting. At this point, according to Meltzer, SmackDown was putting it to Raw. SmackDown was a much more wrestling-focused show. And this is probably this has got to be when Heyman was in control of SmackDown, too. I believe, although I thought that
was around
later.
this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was 2003.
But, 5 out of the 6 of these guys go on to be world champions within the next 3 or so years. Chavo didn't, but yeah, kind of nuts. That and there was no, by the way, at this point, there was no Intercontinental Championship. Mm-hmm. It was merged with the big gold belt on Raw. So they essentially had the hardcore title, and then maybe like the European title all got merged into the Intercontinental Championship. And then that got merged into the world title. And so, Raw only had one title. That only lasted 7 months. Steve Austin came in and said, "What? Y'all won an Intercontinental Championship.
There it is.
I'm going to go fish mine out of the river."
There you go. Then Chris Nowitzki comes out, drops a promo, starts talking trash about New York and New Yorkers.
Calls them stupid.
Matt Hardy comes out and says, "I think you got it wrong, Chris. They're not stupid. They're losers." They eventually agree that New Yorkers are both stupid and losers. Ooh. And that's when the sirens blare. Holler if you hear me.
Holler if you hear me. Give me a fucking mic.
Scott Steiner comes out. He destroys Hardy and Nowitzki, grabs the mic, drops his catchphrases. Crowd goes wild.
Yeah. All those freaks in New York City. I'm your hookup. I'm horny.
Holler if you hear me.
Holler if you hear me. My nephew's going to be NXT champion. Born at this point is Braun's over 20, isn't he?
I would think so.
He was a little toddler back then, probably.
Yeah. Now, we were supposed to have a Shawn Michaels interview, but that was interrupted by RNN breaking news. It's young Randy Orton who, before he learned how to drop a promo.
Dude, this is like he could barely speak.
This was bad.
This was so bad. He's got like the longish hair going.
Yeah.
He's just, but you know what? God bless him. They had to keep him on TV. Obviously, Vince loved him and put up with all of his shit around this time. He says he decided to take time out of my rehab schedule to come to Survivor Series. I want to thank the fans and keep sending get well messages to getwellrandy at WWE.com. And by the way, shout out to the plane stewardess for giving me a pillow.
Yeah. It was bad.
It was.
It goes to tell you that sometimes people just need more reps.
Dude, I'm telling you, the older you get, I don't even think, yes, they do need reps because at a certain point, at a young age, but Goldberg left without knowing how to cut a promo. He comes back when he's like 50 years old And I don't care who you are. If you're like 45 to 50 years old, you can get any ring and cut a promo on anybody, and it's infinitely better than like a polished 22-year-old. Because when you're older, you stop giving a fuck, and like you can just say things and not sound like an idiot. I mean, I'm still learning, but still.
More reps. You need more reps. That's why, Steve.
I guess so.
More reps.
Age. I need more age.
Need more age. All right. Then we get an Elimination Chamber video package. I'm sure this was the Saliva
Set
too.
to Saliva.
Then we get Triple H interview. He's talking about in September he was given the World Heavyweight title because he was the best. The last 3 months he's beat everybody, but it's not enough. Now I got to be in this chamber match. I think it's 5 of the best ever, but when tonight's over, I'm still going to be champ because I'm that damn good.
I'm the game.
Then we got Bischoff coming out. Says, I'm back. Making history again.
And I've got a wrench. And I'm going to show you guys.
I thought it was a pipe.
Oh, maybe it was a pipe. I thought it was a wrench. He just started clanging around everywhere. It was awesome.
It was pretty wild.
Because these dudes were backstage like, oh, fuck.
These poor 6 guys.
Yeah.
Gosh. You had Chris Jericho, Booker T, Kane, Shawn Michaels, RVD, and Triple H in this chamber match. And Jericho's the first out. And I'm like, this isn't Break the Walls Down. Oh, this is Saliva?
Yeah, I didn't like it. I don't think
he liked King of the World gimmick.
He looked like, because I think he was probably soon to be gone for a little while. Maybe. I don't know. He left and came back a lot back then.
He did.
This might have been too early for that. But yeah, I guess he, at that point, Break the Walls Down was like 4 years old or 3 years old. So they decided to do something new, I guess. I don't know.
And it wasn't very good. So RVD and Triple H are the first 2 to start. There's way too many backdrops on the steel floor outside the ring.
Yeah.
Eventually, RVD climbs up on Jericho's pod for a move off there. Jericho reaches up and pulls his leg into the pod.
And also dangerous, yeah.
It is, really dangerous. Triple H gets up on the top rope, tries to get involved. RVD fights him off, crotches him over the top rope. It eventually hits a senton off the top that I mentioned earlier, that when RVD landed, the camera, was a good shot on him. He's just grabbing his hip and his tailbone. Just the pain is just all over his face. Yeah. It was awful. There's a lot of backdrops in this match. Jericho's out next. He and Triple H kind of joined forces a bit. Well, it's the 3 of them. Booker T is in next. He goes after Triple H and Jericho. He eventually clears the ring, does a spin-a-rooney. And then RVD, he leaps up to the top rope, decides to go atop a pod for a frog splash, does hit frog splash. Unfortunately, though, he hits Triple H in the throat with it.
Yeah.
Earl pretty much instantly leans over, talks Triple H, throws up the X. But rather than having any medical personnel come and get in the ring to check on him, it looks like he just rolled towards the far side closest to hard cam, that part of the ring, and just tried to communicate with people that way.
Yeah.
So right after that frog splash, they're saying, RVD hit his knee. His knee might be blown out. Booker T hits him with a missile drop kick. He's eliminated.
Yeah.
And so apparently it's supposed to be Shawn Michaels in next. Well, Kane came in next. Maybe they called an audible there because Triple H was hurt. I don't know.
That could be.
Kane's in next. He goes on a massive run. He throws Jericho through one of the pods. Jericho's busted open. Oh, Triple H bled within the first 2 minutes of the match.
Within moments, he did. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Booker T's looking for an axe kick on Kane. Instead, Jericho low blows Booker T. Kane hits Booker T with a choke slam. Jericho follows with a line salt. Booker T, he's out of the match. Shawn Michaels is in. There's this period where Kane starts choke slamming everybody. And then Shawn Michaels super kicks Kane. Kane sits up. Triple H hits with a pedigree, and then Jericho follows with a moonsault or a line salt to eliminate Kane.
Yeah.
So then we got Jericho and Triple H double teaming Shawn Michaels for a while. Shawn Michaels is busted open. At one point, Jericho is just yelling at him to bleed.
Yeah.
Michaels makes a comeback. He's looking for a pile driver on the steel floor on Jericho. Instead, he gets backdropped. I think Michaels took 3 backdrops on the steel.
Ugh, that's rough. Yeah. Jericho hits Heartbreak with a bulldog, follows with a lion salt. He only gets 2 there. He gets pissed off because it's like, well, that's my finish. I don't know what else you want me to do. So he just covers him again. HBK kicks out again. HBK hits Jericho with a moonsault, gets 2 with that. Locks on the walls of Jericho. Not the first time he locked on somebody else's finishing move on them.
Anyways. At Survivor Series, too.
Yeah, at Survivor Series. Triple H broke that up with a boot. Hits a DDT. Jericho covers, and Triple H is like, hey, what are you doing? That's my... Bro! It's elimination! It doesn't matter! You don't need to get the...
He wants to be the one to eliminate Shawn.
That's the story. Shud.
That's the story.
Shud. It's good enough that he gets eliminated. Triple H. Anyways, they brawl. Triple H gets the better of that. Hits a face buster. Jericho kicks out of that. Jericho leaps off the second rope. Triple H tries to catch him with a pedigree, but Jericho reverses that into walls of Jericho. HBK hits Sweet Chin Music on Jericho to release the walls of Jericho. Jericho gets eliminated, and so we're down to the game and heartbreak as the final 2.
So they're out on the steel floor. Shawn Michaels looking for a pedigree. Triple H blocks that, catapults Shawn Michaels through one of the pods. Triple H brings it back in the ring, covers, gets a 2. Triple H is looking for a pedigree on the steel now. Then Shawn Michaels catapults him into the cage. Shawn Michaels sends it back into the ring with a clothesline. He climbs the top pod, hits the top rope elbow off the top of the pod.
Like basically at his hip. Like he stays so far away from his throat area.
I know.
It's the best friends do.
I know. So he's calling for Sweet Chin Music. He's tuning up the band, goes for it. Triple H catches it, hits the pedigree, but he's so beat up. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm sure his throat's all messed up. Slow to make the cover. Because throughout this match, it sucked to watch. Triple H would do a couple things, and you see the look on his face like, I'm gonna go get my breath back.
Yeah.
So until it was down to the final 2, he would do a couple moves, and he would just sell. Do a couple moves, sell.
Yeah. He was in the hospital for 2 straight days. He said he got out of the hospital. They rushed him to the hospital after this for 2 straight days. He says he was released still in his wrestling gear,
still caked in his own blood too.
And yeah. He was all 48 hours. Yeah.
Oh, so it's crazy that he managed to finish this match. That's absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
So he's slow to make the cover. Once he does, Shawn Michaels kicks out. Triple H goes for another pedigree. Shawn Michaels reverses into a backdrop, follows with Sweet Chin Music to get the win.
Yeah, and confetti comes raining down, and the crowd was super into this. Crowd was massively into this.
Shawn Michaels is one of the best, if not the best, in-ring performer of all time.
And this was
even with the doo-doo brown pants.
With the doo-doo. Yeah, they forgave that. I don't know. What do you think is worse, the doo-doo brown pants or the bob haircut? He was wearing cowboy boots, too. Well, that was fucking nuts. Cowboy, what are these boots that he's wearing?
No, they are cowboy boots because Pritchard says that his ring gear wasn't finished. He didn't have, the wrist wraps he usually has because it wasn't finished. His boots weren't finished. Sorry, he didn't have them, so he had to wear the boots he wore to the arena. That's what Pritchard said.
Yeah. He doesn't have his old ring gear? He had a million different...
I know, and they're all great.
Where the last Survivor? Where is 97 Survivor Series gear?
I don't know.
Nobody has boots. Nobody's like, here, just use my normal wrestling boots. Were these specially fitted specially geeked out cowboy boots? I've literally never worn cowboy boots. I have no idea how comfortable they are.
So I haven't worn cowboy boots since I was a kid. And one thing I remember about them is that they're exceptionally slippery unless you rough up the bottom because it's just leather on the bottom.
Okay, yeah.
It's just a piece of leather. So you got to rough it up so there's any sort of grip. So the fact that he's in there, I'm sure these cowboy boots have been worn and are a bit roughed up on the bottom. But the fact that he was still in there wrestling a match in cowboy boots is pretty impressive.
No, I know, but how comfortable are they on the inside? I don't know. That's nuts.
I don't know. Probably not very. I don't know.
I mean, I guess they got to be super durable. People were wearing them for a long time out in the Old West in the frontier days.
Yeah,
doing all sorts of stuff, running. I guess I don't know. That's nuts.
It is pretty crazy, but yeah, it seems like his ring gear wasn't finished. He just had to put something together. That's what it seems like.
And the weird thing is, I was trying to pay attention to this shit. It said H on one side, and on the other side, it just said H.
I guess the B and the K didn't get on there in time. That's what I'm saying.
I thought the midsection, his trunks would have the B on it, and there'd be a K on one side.
Well, I wonder if it was supposed to be HBK down each leg. going down. So they had the H and then the B and the K, and then they had that weird new logo on the rear end.
How was your stuff not done? You know that you got this match. It's your comeback match. You've had like 5 years.
Well, that's the second match.
Well, the first one he had jeans. It was a street fight. And probably cowboy boots. Maybe he was like, oh, where are these cowboy boots been my whole life? I need to be wrestling in these all the time if I'm going to do this.
I feel like his haircut wouldn't have been as bad if it was maybe like 1.5 inches or 2 inches longer.
Yeah, no, I agree.
If it reached the shoulders,
it would have been all right. Yeah,
but it was like 1 inch or 1.5 inches shorter than that.
Honestly, if you just put it back in a ponytail, it'll look great. I don't know. He looked goofy as hell.
He should have come back with the 1992 mullet. That's what he should have come back with.
You can see the friggin' logos on his knee pads. He's sort of. Man, even like regular, like black, but brown. Hey, we got some questions. I put up a question thread from the Friendos. All right. And then we're going to put up a poll for our $10 patrons over at patreon.com/Stephen Larson.
Next.
And you guys get to decide what we do next. I'm going to bring one to the table. Larson's going to bring one to the table. And then we're going to look, if you want to pull up the community thread at the YouTube Stephen Larson.
Sure.
And see if there's a sort of commonality, if anybody has like the same suggestion. Let's see here. Eli McCaig, with this having been the first Elimination Chamber match, do you think that the Elimination Chamber match waned in popularity, or is it still a fun concept in WWE? So I'll be honest with you. I still enjoy the Elimination Chamber because of the countdown stuff. But because they've done so many of them and it's been hit or miss, like, yeah, I think that it's like the novelty, obviously. Like whenever they made it its own pay-per-view. At that point, it's like, okay, we know it's going to happen.
It's again like other stipulation matches that it should just happen when it makes sense for the storyline, as opposed to having a scheduled pay-per-view every year that now you have to tailor everything around it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a backwards approach to how they should be doing it, probably.
Enforcer says, did the right man win? Would you have changed any of the eliminations? I think that there's two people who should have won this. HBK, I think, was absolutely the right person to win. It's an iconic moment. It really is. It kicked off his comeback properly in a big way, and he had a Hall of Fame level second half of his career. I mean, the first half but that second half alone was absolutely stellar. But RVD was massively popular. That dude was so popular. It is kind of surprising that it was another 4 years,
2006,
until he won the major title. I know he won a lot of other things in the meantime. He won tag title, intercontinental title. But yeah, no, I would have. RVD was the guy, but I think this is the right guy in this case.
Yeah, agreed.
Let's see here. Dylan asks, was this show the perfect way to do a live performance at a pay-per-view with the band at an entirely different location?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really care for musical performances in my wrestling shows.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't care for
them. It doesn't do a lot for me, to be honest with you. It doesn't do a whole lot for me. I don't care if it's like my favorite band. It's kind of like bra and panty matches. I don't need them in my wrestling. I don't need titillation in my wrestling. There are other places I can go for that. Music is the same thing. I like music as those great video packages they would do to build to Mania. Mm-hmm. Even the packages here with that Saliva song, I thought the Saliva song was fine within the context of pro wrestling. Didn't need it for an entire performance and then be used in every aspect of the show.
Yeah. All right, I got a couple suggestions for our next one.
All right, we got a couple more questions here. Let's see here. Andy B, you've already kind of mentioned that. He says, what do you think of the Madison Square Garden hallway entrance?
Love it. I love that. I actually like the entrance there. I know people don't, Pritchard especially, but I think I've heard other people mention they don't like that because people are always walking by there. That doesn't bother me because it just feels like they have to very specifically tailor that space, Madison Square Garden, the most famous arena in the world. That's what they keep saying, for a wrestling show.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me of going on a much smaller scale, going to PWG shows in Reseda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It makes it somehow feel more intimate.
And more alive, that things are buzzing around and going on.
I love the LED doors. I loved all that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind it so much. I was gonna say something and now I forgot what it was. But yeah, no, I'm kind of with you. I kind of dig it. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Nikyle, should the Cruiserweight title match and the women's title hardcore match have been given more time? I mean, the women's title hardcore match was really physical, so I wouldn't say, yeah, do more crazy shit.
I just think if everything had gone to plan and they got the finish off they wanted to, that would have been totally cool.
Mm-hmm,
they had their story, they told it, and I thought they did a really good job. Just stuff happened sometimes, and the finish didn't go off how they wanted it to.
Yeah,
that just kind of happens sometimes, and that's a bummer. But no, I didn't necessarily think either of them needed more time. They both had a story, they told the story, and they did it to the best of their abilities.
Yeah. Mayor of Planet Houston, do you miss when Survivor Series matches were not brand versus brand and were motivated by storyline? I'll be honest, like this would be my order of my power ranking types of Survivor Series. Brand versus brand is my favorite when done right. When, like 2019, when done right, to me, it's my favorite thing because you keep the brand separate for a whole year. And that's why they don't do it right anymore, because the draft comes right before it. It doesn't make any sense. But back when it was, you keep the brand separate for a year and then you do Survivor Series, that's stellar because the brands have a chance to build bonds and relationships, and they can put those grievances aside, and then it's brand versus brand. Then would be storyline motivated like a normal thing. And
well, here's the thing about,
I don't care about the Survivor Series traditional matches. That's
what I'm saying. The one thing that I liked about this Survivor Series is they got rid of that format because I guess Vince was just tired of it.
Yeah. And
I like using Elimination Chamber instead of the traditional elimination style tag matches because it is an elimination match. There is a sole survivor at the end of the chamber match.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea of a sole survivor. It's just, those years when they would do like nothing but Survivor Series matches, you'd have like 5 different sole survivors. It's like, well, that's not a sole survivor.
No,
that's like 5.
Unless they have a match at the end where they all have a match and they get something if they win that match.
Yeah. I'd be down for that. That'd be
Otherwise,
cool.
It just feels like exhibition matches that don't really mean anything.
Mm-hmm. We'll end on this one, and then we'll do the figure out what we're going to do next. Don Wagner says, is Sean's gear for this show his worst ever? What are his top 3 at this? I think this is his worst ever.
It's worse than the chaps.
His top 3 attires.
Oh, his classic gear, but the DX ones.
That would be my number 1, because it's like black and then Volt on it.
Yeah, those are the best.
High up there would be, because I remember Alex was watching the second ladder match with him and Razor, and he had like the teal gear on.
Yeah,
and it was beautiful.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
It was really good looking stuff.
So his Survivor Series 97, the black pants with the red logos.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah. Those are great. Those are amazing.
Classic.
Those are great. I also like the red pants with the blue heartbreak sign. I thought those looked really snazzy too. Whenever he really made him look cool and stuff, I was really into that. But this brown stuff, boy, that's terrible.
We'll get the story behind those. That would be interesting. All right, let's talk about what we want to do for the next one. So I got a couple outside the box ideas. I was looking at the community tab thread, and a lot of people are suggesting old TNA shows, something neither of us, I think, are terribly well versed in.
That's true.
So there's one show that's mentioned here a couple times, and that's Lockdown 2010. This card is all over the place. It's all cage matches. Okay. The whole card is cage matches. The main event is Team Hogan, that's Abyss, Jeff Hardy, Jeff Jarrett, and RVD against Team Flair, that's Desmond Wolfe, Nigel McGuinness, James Storm, Bob Roode, and Sting. You got Kurt Angle on this card. You got AJ as champion. You got Team 3D against the Band in a cage match. That's Kevin Nash and Scott Hall.
Yeah.
Kevin Nash has 2 matches on this card, both in steel cages.
MVP.
One against Eric Young.
Dude, yeah.
RVD has 2 matches. He opens the card against James Storm. They both have 2 matches, and they're the main event. Also, Unbreakable 2005, main events, AJ Styles versus Christopher Daniels versus Samoa Joe, that classic triple threat match for the X Division title. The title match, the world title match, is Raven versus Rhino.
Oh, interesting.
And then it looks like an interesting card. You got Abyss versus Sabu in a no DQ match.
Let's do for the fan version. Let's do that because that's like early-ish. I mean, it's like 3 years on from TNA, and I'm kind of curious about early TNA, so I'm cool putting that up. I am gonna put up the one I've been watching lately because it's
King of the Ring '96.
Cheat, yeah, King of the Ring 1996. That's gonna be my. It's Stone Cold Steve Austin in the Austin 316. I'm curious. It's a fucking weird card. It's a really weird card, and there's definitely some unintentional funny stuff in there. And what would you like to bring to the table? Since
WrestleMania is on the horizon,
yeah.
Ooh, that's tempting.
We should. Oh, speaking of Madison Square, that's what I was going to mention. The Madison Square Garden entrances, the very first WrestleMania. Talk about like feeling like it's a big living, breathing, buzzy thing.
I know.
It's like all dark and there's like one spotlight and people are all over the place during entrances. Yeah.
So I got down to 2. I was thinking WrestleMania 13.
Okay.
We can watch it and try to find out whether Sid shit his pants or not.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Slow down. Yeah.
Or we can do. I was seeing somebody on Twitter the other day was saying how underrated WrestleMania 24 is, and that's Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, the retirement match. That's a good match. Main events: Undertaker versus Edge. You know what? We'll do that another time. WrestleMania 13.
Good. I like bad stuff, so let's. I'm so glad you. Because man, I love the '90s. So I am all about WrestleMania 13. I think that's great. Let's do that. So we've got that King of the Ring 1996, and what is the TNA one? 2005.
Unbreakable 2005.
Unbreakable 2005. All right, sounds good. We'll put all those up for vote at the $10 and up Patreon level. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.